If I'm driving by a job site, sometimes that like I don't plan to stop. Like it's just happened to drive by it on the where I'm going. Like I'm like, oh, I kind of go where like my truck can't be seen because I don't want people to think, I don't want to stop and talk to them.
Sure.
Because I do,
Yeah.
I just can't. But if they
Yep.
won't understand that, I'm like, just the optics of things. The optics of things are huge. And I talked to my leadership team about that. I'm like, guys, you got to think about the optics, what we do and how we act and the things we say or don't do. The optics are huge.
The ESOP thing is, I think, one of the best models out there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. I think it's even more work in a lot of ways, and you're the one doing it, so maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have to be to make it successful, you have to be really intentional.
Very.
You can't, it's by no means an easy button.
Yeah.
Oh, I just hit ESOP, hit the ESOP button, and now we have a culture of ownership.
Not at all.
I don't think it works that way.
But we already started like that though. So I'm like, what? It's almost a no-brainer that we went ESOP because we were transparent. I'm like, this automatically plugs in. So where I think a lot of people are, in the starting blocks, dead still. I think we were at a full sprint when the starting gun went off, and we still established a communication committee, and we're still looking at best practices to how we communicate and stuff like that to get better, best in class at it. But yeah, I just came back from the conference, the NCEO conference, which is the National Center for Employee Ownership.
Oh, wow.
I mean, a ton of people there.
I feel like I saw a picture with your team.
Yeah, we were probably standing in front of the NCEO.
Yeah, you were. Yep,
letters.
That was
it. Yep, that was us. And there's a lot of companies been doing it for years, and they're not doing any education or training.
Sure. Yeah,
which is crazy.
But I feel like you're leaving so much on the table when you're not intentional about it like that.
Yeah.
When you're intentional about it, it can be such a weapon. It's so cool. Like the companies that are so deep in it are so much fun to be around because it has even it was funny. So my mom, she's been in the legal world for decades. So she was in law, meets my dad. My dad's a lawyer. She stops working when she has kids. They get divorced a while down the road. She goes back into law. She'd been in so law like her whole life. And it just got to a point where it's like, hey, maybe there's something else out there for me. She's later in her career. And so I was like, why don't I try to find her a gig here? Like what I know a lot of people. Why don't I ask around? And there's this general contractor, Wilming in Phoenix, Arizona, that I know. I don't know super well, but I know of them, know some key people there. So I helped get her in the door, but she did the work. She's now working there, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. Super exciting. And she was like, yeah, they have an ESOP program. And I was like, they're an ESOP. She's like, yeah, that's it. I'm like, no, that's exciting. Like I got excited for her because I didn't even know they were employee owned. And when I found out about that, I was like, hey, but I had to like explain it to her. Like, this is a big deal. That means everybody is rowing in the same direction. Everybody's a shareholder. You become a shareholder. And so I had to but really explain it to her because I feel like most people still haven't heard of the structure.
And companies don't talk about it enough. For her to actually become employed and not really know. I speak with every single new hire at every new hire orientation about a lot of things, but a lot of it's the ESOP. I explain how it works and not in the minutia, but in concept and what the impact is and what the ultimate goal is. And a lot of companies just almost like it's another retirement plan. You get your 401k and your ESOP. And I'm like, no, ours is going to be face-forward, robust part of our culture. We're talking about it all the time. Everyone's an employee owner. We don't talk, it's either teammate or employee owner. And it just, you just got to keep that messaging.
So everybody at the company participates.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to be employed for 1,000 hours as a new hire, and then you come in, and there's a vesting program. But everyone participates.
But I join on Petticoat-Schmitt pipe layer, and after 1,000 hours, which is 5 months.
Half a year, 5 months.
6 months. I'm now in the program. And then it'll vest over like 4 years?
6 years.
6 years?
Yep.
5 years?
Which is pretty typical.
Yep.
Yeah. And some of our people, when I started it last year, we retroactively made the start date at the beginning of 23. So if you were working for us since then, you're automatically vested 2 years, and then you got another year for every 5 years you were there. So some people are like 4 years vested already.
I see.
4 and 5 years vested.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, and we've talked about it a little bit, but it stacks up. So the longer you work, the more shares you accrue based on how much you're paid within the business.
Yeah, the share allocation is basically your percent of your salary to the aggregate of salaries.
Yep.
But the stock price, right? Every year you have a stock price. An independent company does a valuation, and just like a publicly traded company, only comes out once a year, though. You have your stock price. And in fact, we just got ours, and we're going to have our big reveal at the end of the month,
Which will be the first presentation.
Yeah,
the first time.
Yep, very first stock price.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And so they get shares. That's the price of the shares. In theory, as the company grows, the stock price goes up. The longer the company, the more shares they accrue. So it becomes a pretty nice block of money by the time they retire.
Yes.
And then the company buys those shares from them and gives them that money.
Yeah, essentially over like a 5-year time frame. And paying out when they leave the company. And at the beginning, and I always use the analogy because, it's a leverage transaction, right? The bank financed a big chunk of it, and I have a huge seller note on it too, about a third of it. And I always use the example, it's like, I sell you a $100,000 house, there you go.
Yeah.
But here's a $100,000 mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's not my house.
Yeah, it's like, wow, what do I have to sell it? I got nothing, right? But I tell this to every person who joins on, I use it a lot, is like, what whoopee-doo, right? But, 2 or 3 years, you go build a deck out back, you remodel the bathroom, replace the shrubs out front, paint it, right? Little elbow grease, you and your buddies on the weekend. Meanwhile, you're paying down the mortgage.
Chipping away at the mortgage.
3 years, right? You're down to like an $80,000 mortgage. Maybe the house is at $120,000, right? Boom, that's the same thing. But I always like to say it's even better than real estate because you can't take that house and from the bad part of town and move it to the good part of town.
Sure.
But a business value, you can. It's not like specific location, specific. I mean, so you could do anything, right? You can get really creative. We can come up with new lines. Do some lean implementation. I mean, there's so much opportunity to drive value.
Yeah. And that's on top. You're still getting paid your salary, wage, whatever it is. Yeah. And then you still have retirement on top of that as well. Yeah. So it's
we have 401k.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And it's just so I do these what I call them feedback sessions. I have little small meetings with different parts of the company multiple times a week. Like I'll take biscuits and coffee out to a job site, or like this last week I was doing it with our mechanics. And I always sit down. I'm like, hey, what's going good with the company? What could we do better? What would we do if you were me? Just to get feedback. It's awesome. I love doing it. But anyhow, this last week I was with our mechanics, and I'm like, well, what's going good? And one of them said, he goes, you know what? Since we've been ESOP, I swear the equipment's been taken better care of. And I'm like, you have no idea. I'm like, my body is tingling right now. This is awesome. This is exactly the master plan, right? This is how it's supposed to work, right? Yeah. Because I always tell everyone, I'm like, Brandon, that's your equipment right there.
Sure.
Hey, y'all just got a new, 350, right? It's all we all own it together. Yeah. So but to hear that, an uninitiated comment of that, and that's good. So
that's huge.
That only gets you more motivated to try. Okay, how can we further communicate that? What else can we do?
Sure, and it's only been a year, like you said as well. But even though the ball was rolling before that, those feedback sessions. So you just take coffee and like the mechanics, for example, you just go to the shop and say, hey, at 9, we're just going to get together for an hour.
Yeah, it's usually in the morning. I'll do like a job site. I like a small group of like our PMs and PEs, to do our treatment plant projects. Usually it's a group small enough where everyone gets a chance to talk. And,
sure.
So if it's a job site, I'll show up with, breakfast biscuits and coffee. And I always say, I feed you, but you give me feedback. And when I first started doing it, people were, maybe not as talkative, but I've been doing this for years now. And now people are like, oh, yeah. And I mean, they're speaking their mind. I tell them that some stuff I'll go fix right away.
Sure.
Some stuff I just keep in the back of my mind. And when I make a decision down the road, I have a better perspective.
Sure.
I'm one of the first ones. It was probably within the first couple of months I was out there, and someone was telling me like, because we supply bottled water to all the job sites, right? Not just kegs of water.
Yeah.
And someone mentioned that you're like, this filtered water, if it sits in the sun a little long, it just starts tasting weird.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, really? I had no idea.
Yeah.
What do we do? All right, spring water for everyone. And they're like, the back of the outlet, they're like, what? What do you, yeah. I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, that's way more expensive. I'm like, yeah, but that other stuff tastes bad. We're not going to do it. And it was funny. They're like, Ryan just went and switched all the water we're getting. And they were so happy. And I'm like, I had no idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, it's interesting too. I've been, it's just so easy. Especially when I speak upon this, like I've really reflected upon what makes great companies. And one of the biggest, most important factors is that leadership is present. There's no way around that. And that, it sounds so obvious, but it's actually quite rare because, and I don't blame leadership because it's busy. Leading company, there's all kinds of stuff going on that no one has any idea about.
Yeah.
Bankers and insurance and lawyers and all kinds of stuff. You're trying to get all the roadblocks out of the way so they can just keep building stuff, keep putting pipe in the ground. But you can get so caught up in all that. And even you can sometimes use it as an excuse. Like, listen, I'm just too busy to get out. And then like 6 months can go by, 12 months can go by, and you haven't talked to some people. You haven't gotten out.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh. So I've started scheduling it. But what's interesting too is like you have to build that relationship as well. And so like the first time you meet with somebody you haven't met with is a little awkward because they're trying to feel you out. You're getting to know them a little bit, but then you build that relationship. It's the subsequent meetings, the subsequent time together that gets really good because it's like, oh, this isn't nonsense.
Yeah.
They actually do care about me. Okay, I'll offer my opinion, it's pretty cool. Like, but it just takes, you have to be consistent with it. I've learned you can't just do it once, or else you're not going to get like, an annual feedback survey. It's not going to be that good.
Because my assistant's responsible for putting it on my calendar. Like every week, I've got I might do like 4 a week if I'm traveling or a little bit. Maybe I do 1 a week or maybe even skip a week, but I'll make it up, right? Yeah. So I average probably 2 or 3 a week.
That's quite a few. I mean, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, but I'll just go right to a job site, right, and just like just spend that time. And but I was guilty of that. And we practice EOS with the structure of a visionary and then an integrator. And I'm like, what? We're not like Apple. What do we? I mean, a visionary. You don't need a
Sure.
And so I was head down in my office grinding it out, and I was that guy. And while I still was a good delegator, I was just in my office. And then, we fully adopted that structure. Lauren Atwell, I named as our president and COO, and I became the CEO. And and it was like, all right, well, I'm the visionary, big picture, culture, strategy, major acquisitions, major relationships. I'm like, well, what the heck does that mean?
Sure.
And then I kind of, got started doing these. I'm like, it's my unique ability. I really enjoy it. I almost felt guilty because this is actually too much fun, right? I get out and hang out with the guys and get to listen to them and they feel appreciated. Yeah. I'm like, I can't count that as work. Come on, who am I kidding here, right? But the value, the value and how important it was to everyone in the company. I was blown away.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just something that's so important. And I realize whenever I'm in my office, I'm the least value to the company. And I bought and we're remodeling a new office now, but we got really tight in our old one, and we needed more and more. I gave up my office, my backpack. I just plopped down in different parts of the company and just kind of like sit in a conference room or sit in the break room and talk to people. I'm like, I do not need to be in my office. I need to be out, in front of people, clients and other people too, but really our people, right? And just, being that visible leader and empathetic and curious and concerning, right? And I'm like, holy cow, man, but I was guilty. I wasn't doing that, the whole time. And especially when you grow a company, right? You grow in your leadership skills, and that one's just not so obvious, because it doesn't feel like you're working. It almost feels like you're goofing off.
Well, and even harder, what we were talking about earlier is like even just making time to think, because you're not doing, but that's the whole point. You're not doing, so that's when you can think strategically up and out, big picture, but you have to overcome the sense of guilt in a way, especially at a construction company, especially August in Florida at a construction company, everybody, underground, you're in a trench, and it's pretty miserable. Like that's hard work. And you're sitting there thinking. Yeah. But
I'm sipping my coffee in Starbucks, trying to get away from the office, which I'll do. Hard. And I'll carve out that time. And I've got more coaching than you can imagine, and I'm learning immensely all the time. And but just seeing these high level leaders, they need to be thinking, and I realize that. And so much of my time, I'm like, nope, quit going to just culling meetings. Just hire great people, have them get it done, great processes, and then just start thinking, right? Thinking about the future. What does it look like, right? I'm thinking 20 years ahead now. We have a 10-year plan, a 3-year plan, 1-year plan, but I'm like, but what does 20 years look like, and just, and then, because you got to build that muscle too, right? Because you can't just be the guy his head's down and then he's like, oh, I'm going to be a really good thinker and think, man, because that takes a while. It's a skill set that you got to kind of work on.
It is a skill set. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been reflecting upon that a lot recently. And there's a lot of people, even in like big companies in prominent roles, but they're just still so day-to-day oriented that it's like, I almost wish I could like take them and put them somewhere else. Like, let's just think for a little bit. Let's think bigger. Like there's so much more here. This is a big world and honestly, that's how I feel about the industry right now. In big picture, it's like, hey, let's think bigger here. Like, I get it. I get what's going on. I'm around. I interact with stuff. Like, I know there's all this stuff going on. We've got to build stuff, and I get it. There's a lot going on, but we like if we're like, I think we're industry wide. Not to take it way too big picture, but it's like we're the victims. Like we're the architects of our problem right now, because we haven't been looking up and out as an industry, because we haven't been looking big picture. We've been so focused on the execution that we're now looking up and out like, oh shit, what are we going to do future state? Like, this is a problem. Workforce especially, like, what the heck just happened? We've just been running the play for decades and we've built a bunch of great stuff, but now what? And it's like, now what? We gotta look up and out and define what that is. And it's great that, a Petticoat-Schmitt's doing it or a Sargent's doing it or whoever's doing it, but like, we also have to do it as an industry as well. Like, where's the industry going? Where do we need to be big picture? And that's what we're doing with the summit, Dirt World Summit, for example. It's like, let's talk about where we're going, not where we've been, not where we are, but where are we going? Oh,
and it's such an exciting time. I mean, that's what's, it just blows my mind. In fact, Herb and I were just texting yesterday, he connected me with this guy, Zach Estes, who's this lean in the dirt world. Sure. And I've been kicking around lean for years, and we committed and hired an industrial engineer. Yeah. And we're like, no, we are doing lean. And it's a journey, right? Because, but just, I tell everyone all the time, I have this saying, it's like, we put a man on the moon before we put wheels on our luggage.
Sure.
I mean, you think about that. Yeah. We put a flipping man on the moon before we figured out that we didn't have to carry our luggage back in the day.
Yeah. Or so
before your time, right? Yeah. But I'm like, guys, where are we carrying our luggage in this business, right? We're doing the same thing over and over, and we got AI. We've got all these tools. So I don't. That's where my head is a lot. And like, how can we, leverage AI? Because I stumbled on this opportunity. I'm on the advisory council for University of North Florida, the Dean's Leadership Council for Construction Engineering and Computing. And I was in one of our meetings, and I was just running my mouth going, God, I think my next hire is going to be someone who's just going to do AI. I need a who to help me with AI. And they're like, hey, Ryan, well, can we come talk to you? I'm like, sure. Well, I had no idea, but they said they had this program that was called Professor in Residence. Basically, you pay a professor for the summertime of what his salary would be, and he can do whatever you want. And
at
this
your
guy,
company.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And he's a construction professor with an AI background, and he just worked on AI projects the whole summer.
Really?
And we came up with AI solutions to like scan specs for RFIs and all this, all the submittals and shop drawings, and he did multiple projects. And now, that was last summer. Now they came to us and they're like, hey, we're proposing we'll work the whole year, the same professor, but he's going to have some grad students under him working. And it's way, way cheaper than even just hiring one person.
Yeah.
And
they get real world.
Then they've got the skill sets, and if we come up with anything, we get the intellectual property rights, and so I'm like, let's go. Yeah, it's really exciting, and then we're using a lot for like estimating and as well as sourcing candidates. And I get it to where I just talk to it. I speak into it, driving down the road. I just start asking the questions, bouncing stuff off,
Yeah, Randy and Dan and Jason, they're just all down the AI rabbit hole right now. And I'm like the grumpy old man. I'm like, all right, you kids have fun. I'm going to sit here and write word by word like an idiot. It's like, I don't want to do
God,
it. Thank God,
you'd still be laying pipe by batter boards and not a pipe laser, right? Yeah, if you were that guy. Yeah.
If you're looking for another industry event that is a snooze fest, this is definitely not for you. But if you're a leader looking to elevate yourself, your team, looking for like-minded individuals that are hungry, then look no further than the Ariat Dirt World Summit, November 5th through the 7th in Dallas, Texas. In our third year, we'll have about 1,500 hungry industry leaders from about 500 companies looking to learn, grow, teach. It's going to be fantastic. We also have a world-class lineup. We've got Jesse Cole from the Savannah Bananas, James Clear, Atomic Habits, Kim Scott, Radical Candor, Mark Miller, Chick-fil-A Leadership, Tim Grover, who is Michael Jordan's trainer. You will not hear from a lineup like this anywhere else. So check out details now, dirtworld.com. You can use code Aaron10 for 10% off any registrations, and we'll see you November 5th through the 7th in Dallas, Texas. It's all really interesting. In college, I met with a guy. I've probably told the story 100 times before, but it was a guy. He was a general contractor in Phoenix, where I was going to school. Steve Channon of Channon Construction, and he explained it better than anybody I've ever had it explained to me. It was like, listen, I'm Mr. General Contractor. I'm making plenty of money, and I've been doing it this way for decades. I'm not really incentivized to change things up. I'm just not. However, why don't I know how much steel I have on this job right now? I can't tell you. I don't know. I should know exactly how much steel I have in this job. Like, and he was just illustrating, and they are innovating. It's not to downplay what they're doing, but he was really just trying to illustrate, like, there's so many better ways to do things.
Yeah.
But the industry as a whole isn't really incentivized to go after them, which is totally true. Like, especially right now, which is what makes me, the past few years have made me more nervous than anything else, because the spending on infrastructure right now is not normal. Like, it's been amazing to me how short everybody's memory is. Like, everybody's like, yeah, the market's contracting. It's like, is it contracting, or are the trillions of dollars that the government just injected into the economy going away? Like, is that really a contraction?
Yeah.
Or are we just like drunk on this ridiculous, on more government spending worldwide than in human history?
We're just sobering up.
But it's I think fooled a lot of companies, individuals, etc., into thinking that what they're doing is still working, because there's so much money to be made. Like, all these companies are making record money. And I can't show private companies, but you can look at any public company. It's like everybody's making a killing right now. And that's just de-incentivizing asking any questions. That's de-incentivizing asking, is there a better way to do things? Can we innovate? Can we develop people more effectively, so on and so forth? But that also creates the opportunity for people like you. It's like these big companies are not incentivized really to ask those questions. Some are, and some are great. But then somebody like you, more nimble, hey, we're doing great, and let's ask these questions.
Yeah.
We can go even faster.
And I'll tell you, the employee ownership model, it puts like fire on that gasoline in my mind, or at least it has for me. It's like the economic value of the company is completely driving the well-being of our employee owners, right? The old EBITDA is getting thrown around. Yeah, I knew what EBITDA was. I went to school for it and all that, but I probably didn't say it more than a handful of times. But now it's all EBITDA being, that's how the company's valued, right? Yeah. And we talk about it all the time. We're like, hey, this is just a multiple of that EBITDA. And guys, every dollar we drop to the bottom line, it drives it up by a multiple.
Sure.
So if we figure stuff out, and put wheels on our luggage here, I mean, we can really, really make a huge impact. And I mean, life-changing money for a lot of these people who otherwise would not have it. And one, just do some awesome stuff. I mean, to me, that you figure out a better way to do it, or build a more cohesive team, or fine-tune your processes so much that, I mean, that you get that flow, right? You get that flow. Yeah. You pull friction out of the system. Yeah. That's a great feeling. Yeah. And then everyone, is rewarded. So to me, that model prevents you from being like, well, I got my fishing boat and I got my hunting property and blah, blah, blah. I'm good, right? Why do I need to innovate? Right? Sure. It completely turns that on its ear. And, as long as, and that's why we really educate. I'd explain what EBITDA is, right? I mean, every time I get in front of people and talk about it, I mean, I'm not cranking out an accounting class, but the concept behind it, right? Basically the cash flow of the company, profits shown up as in cash flow is what drives it. So, that propane, station we got out in the yard, don't fill up with gas, fill up with propane. I mean, because, we're only paying $1.87 a gallon versus the, $3 we're paying for, gas.
But it puts a totally different meaning on, like, don't idle your machine.
Yeah. Exactly.
It makes a lot more sense.
It's
burning my money.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you been to Japan?
I have not. No.
We went to visit Hitachi in February, and I got to see Japanese manufacturing for the first time, and it's something, I'm weird. Like, I would much rather go to a Japanese factory than Mount Fuji. I think that's way cooler. And it was extraordinary just to see lean in that setting. Like, this is where it's from. Like, these are the people that have built this beautiful manufacturing process. And it was just fun to see it. Like, there's no drama, there's no ego. It's just there's this like beauty to it. There's just no chaos. Yeah. Like, it just makes sense. And everybody is just doing what they should be doing. There's no waste. There's no question marks. There's no gray areas. You know, each station had like the defects that they had found in previous machines posted right there with pictures and pictograms and like as straightforward as it gets, all kinds of fun stuff. Yeah. And I thought it was fascinating.
Oh, I had a similar experience in the late 90s. I was getting my MBA, and I was learning all about, lean manufacturing and specifically the case studies that had to do with Deming, having to go overseas because he was, no one really listened to him here, and how all of a sudden Komatsu started implementing it. And then, and then Komatsu was driving it, but then all of a sudden, deer and cats started. Well, right about the same time, before I started my company, I worked for another heavy civil firm, and we were a big deer user. And I got to go out to Moline and walk through the factories that had acres and acres of indoor factory that was empty because they had now recently adopted all these practices, and they're showing me all the lean procedures, and I've never seen the vast amount of indoor space that was just empty. I'm like, we don't even need it anymore because we're practicing just-in-time inventory, and anyone can stop the line at the same time. And then you're walking the line, and you got the guys who they're working, and they're like, "Oh, you're a customer? Well, they're asking me what I thought about this, and this right here." I'm like, this is the most awesome thing I've ever. It was so cool. I'm in the same camp with you on that. I thought that was awesome, especially on the heels of like learning on it in a book, and then you go and see it in real life, and you're like, holy cow! I mean, it's just amazing, how you just do the same thing over and over and over all these years, and you think you're doing good, and just how you tweak it or you change it and try something different can make a huge impact.
But like underground is a great playground for lean. Like, you can apply it anywhere. Yeah. But I feel like pipe laying, it's very repetitive, for the most part, depending on what you're doing. But it's like, why wouldn't we want to make that more lean? Yeah. Like, there's so many opportunities, and I see a lot of pipe crews. I see a lot of pipe operations. There's nothing cooler to me than just a well-oiled machine. Yeah. Like, the next stick is there before the excavator needs it. The material's not very far. They're not moving very much. Yeah. Everybody, they're doing just enough to do the job and no more than that. And it's extraordinary. It is my favorite thing to watch. Yeah. They just in the crew, you can tell they've worked together for a long time. They know one another. They don't need to talk very much. They can, like, that I love.
And I love it, and from a business owner's perspective, when I go out on a job site and a crew is just still humming. Yeah. Because it's funny, I've had some foremen over the years. Oh, Ryan, when you come out on the job site, guys they lose their mind and they just get nervous and all that. And I think to myself, I'm like, well, that's probably because you're not a strong leader. Because if they really knew what they were doing and they didn't have to be reassured by me or anyone else, that you positively reinforced them day after day and built that chemistry. Because sometimes I'll go out. I remember this one foreman. He was just like you described. I mean, I'm sitting there and I pull up in my truck and he's talking to me by the window, and the crew is just. They're just so much. They're like, "Hey, you got to move because we're just they're just coming along, right?" And it's like I could have been there, and no one could have been. Because they had a great leader in that foreman who just was a good positive reinforcer of what good work looked like, and they didn't need me. It was. But to your point, that is so good, and so that's why we have like our efficiency. We have an efficiency department, an industrial engineer. We'll do time studies on our crews. And we first started doing that. Oh my gosh, it was like Big Brother. Oh, you're just watching us. They're like, no. What are the best sports teams doing? What is Nick Saban doing? they're watching game film, right? This is game film. And we actually had a job where, I mean, we had these guys, they were struggling to get like 80 foot a day. It was in a really tight, confined, all existing utilities. And had to cut and demo asphalt along with the pipe laying, and so we were like, no, let's try this, and like let's just watch it, and we filmed them, and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea we were doing this, and this, and they came up with their own ideas, and they went from like that 80 foot up to 200 foot a day just by doing that, and now we got them, and it's part of. And some people they request it now. They're like, hey, can we do a time study? And
really.
So, but we're to the now it's the next evolution, because now we've learned is like, okay, when we're laying, we're doing pretty good. If we do that and we're laying, we can get better. It's the in-betweens, right? It's like, oh, well, yeah. When we're laying, we're doing good, but it's like, but we had to wait for that, that hoe to be delivered, or there was missing information, or maybe we didn't pothole far enough ahead, or
didn't have rock,
it's the in-betweens, right? And it's like, all right, well, let's get studying on that, right? And let's do like a Pareto chart and figure out what's the low-hanging fruit, and just to figure out, man,
So you have a full-time industrial engineer.
Yeah.
In the efficiency department,
and
they'll do like at its most basic form, take a stopwatch and break up laying a stick of pipe into a few different categories, right? Like digging the trench and maybe grading the trench, laying the pipe. Is that correct? And
it's all pretty much through video. Yeah, we'll do time studies.
So you just record the crew.
Yeah, and then watch, and then categorize the time. And they come up some really cool data where so much percentage was productive time, so much was standby time, so much was waste time, and you could see it all visual in like pie charts and stuff like that. And then trend analysis, you can see these trend lines.
Wow. And then you take that information and meet with the crew about it?
Yeah. They'll look at it, and they'll watch the film too, and it's raw data. And because when you speed it up a little bit, you can kind of see like maybe that all of a sudden, and they're like, oh man, once you start looking at it, you see some things.
Like loaders really run around.
Yeah, it's like, why are we going all that way? Or like, gosh, we're sitting there cutting the asphalt. Why don't we pre-cut it all? Or why don't we? Right? Especially when you just kind of speed it up and you see those times where you're just sitting around and you ask yourself, well, why was that? And
you would do that in like a morning meeting out on site with these guys?
Just whenever we got done doing it, right?
Okay. All right, so at the end of a job?
Yeah. We've got done doing the video, and they're like, all right, guys, it's ready to go. Let's get in there and look at it.
Yeah, but you'll have them look at it out in the field in a morning meeting, something like that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
And we're barely scratching the surface. We had one person in that position, and great guy, but he decided he wanted to go be a pilot, and so we support him on that. And so we just backfilled his position somewhat recently. And the lady who's doing it now, she's coming from a whole other industry, which is kind of interesting, and I like it's more manufacturing, but looking at it with a fresh set of eyes, and coming in there and taking that philosophy. But I think what's real important too is like, you can't go out and use lean technology like Gemba walks and Kaizen and all that. I think that's where the lean kind of struggles a little bit, because everyone automatically, you hear words like that, you're like, oh wait, that's Toyota, that's manufacturing, that's not us, right?
Yeah.
So no, it's like, it's a job site walk, right? We're walking the job site, that's all it's
the same concept.
Paul Lakers wrote a book, 2 Second Lean, that I think is one of the best lean books, and we have our guys, they have to read that before we do like a boot camp for certified builders. It's like 2 days, like Tony Robbins meets construction, and it's really cool. But even to get in, you have to read. One of them is Jason Schroeder's book, but the other one is this 2 Second Lean, and they just like, hey, let's meet at the beginning of the day and talk about what we did and where was it, what could we do differently to save 2 seconds. Just 2 seconds. Yeah. And it just trains your brain to start thinking like that. Well, how about this? Okay, all right. What's the next day, right? And it's just, as opposed to getting hung up on the terminology. And
there was this, and to that, there was this, I forget what his name was, but he was a famous guy in the cycling world, Tour de France, and it was the whole concept was like, listen,
the 1% better, the
yeah,
English cycling team,
yeah, you know about this, but it's like it's pretty common. The English cycling team. You know, if you look at the whole bike and try to make it substantially better, it's really hard because it's already a great bike. But if you break everything down to its components, make everything 1% better, put it all back together, you come up with something pretty cool. And that's just a cool mentality to have. And I think the best contractors, crews, operators, etc., have that mentality. They're always looking to get better, But what you said too, just having that conversation is something. I'm in so many morning meetings in the construction industry, mining industry. Very rarely do I hear one that's different. Very rarely do I hear discussion about what happened yesterday. Very rarely do I hear discussion about what might happen today and what we need to be considering. Like, it's usually very similar. Slips, trips, and falls, stay off your phone, so on and so forth. And it bums me out because that's such a great opportunity just to talk about, like, hey, how'd the day yesterday go? Yeah. What did we do well? What didn't we do well? It doesn't even take that much time. Yeah. And it makes everything so much more productive.
Yeah, we do it on the project level. We have morning huddles where we do that, but we accidentally discovered this. We stumbled across it. We do it with the whole company now. We were a couple of years back. We were struggling. You know, we would have good discussions with our superintendents. They would come in, but it's like, golly, the messaging is. We're struggling to get to the foremen because the foremen are all on the job sites. You know, they're not back in office meetings and like, well, you know, so, and it kind of came out of COVID, like, well, gosh, we're all on Teams now. Why don't we have a morning huddle on Teams, like 7 a.m. And we still have it to this day. It's like, hey guys, shout outs. Let's hear some shout outs. Well, one guy or some gal recognizes someone else, and then we'll do lessons learned. Give us a lesson learned. And guys like, oh, hey, if you're getting pipe from so-and-so, man, we discovered some pipe that you couldn't see it with the naked eye, but it was out of ovality, and we had an issue here. And so it's like lessons learned and shout outs. And then our president who runs it, like a 5-minute leadership lesson or something, talking about something. And then we wrap it up with a dig deeper. That's kind of our motto that we say all the time. And so it's only like a 7 or 8 minute meeting.
This is every day?
Every day. But what we found was, we thought we were just going to be talking to the foreman. Well, all the foreman's guys are standing around because they're all on iPads. And so it was the whole field.
Sure.
And it built this camaraderie and this sharing of lessons learned. And got in my feedback sessions, people were like, oh, I love it because I got to see what's going on with this job. And I'm hearing this. And we feel like this big team. And so it's like sometimes you just stumble across things that, and the unintended consequences. But it's where we can share that. We always talk about lessons learned. Okay, any lessons learned from yesterday? And it's amazing. Guys come up with stuff like, I had no idea.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You said you've done quite a bit with Jason Schroeder.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah.
Every time I talk to him, my brain hurts because he's just so much smarter. Like,
his brain is wide open. That brain is always thinking.
I don't know. Yeah, he lives in a different world. It's just like way beyond wherever I've been. But I feel like, when was that? When did you get on the whole lean thing in the first place? Has it been quite a while?
Well, back when we were a small company, I've always been a reader and a learner. And I was kind of pushing it when it was, God, we were a 30, 40 person company, and it was kind of hard, and but we were just muscling through. But we really doubled down. We went through this, and my story, I talk about the Valley of Darkness, and we were in some really, really rough times, and that's when we kind of came out. I mean, the impact to the company was huge. I'm like, okay, how do I learn from this and come out and just be way better and make this all up? So looking at everything, and that's when we got connected with Jason, and I'd known all about lean for a long time, but that's when I came across the 2-Second Lean book, and then we started doing a bunch of different things. Jason helped us with some of them. We came up with some on our own, and came up with our whole Elevate 20 project delivery system that we trademarked, and kind of came through this valley of darkness. But it was like everything and anything, looking at the business, like we got to, and that's when it became completely transparent, sharing all the financials with the entire company. And so just coming up with a process, the right processes and the right people to come out of this valley, and then make it up too. And that's ultimate, well, a big part of why my decision was to become employee owned too, is like we had people who were just going through the battle day in and day out, and stuck it out and stayed loyal. I'm like, there's no way I can sell this business to someone else that I can't guarantee the culture and the future of the company, not to private equity or a strategic buyer or whoever. So but it was that. And that valley, that was like kind of about a 4 or 5 year time frame. The very bottom was about 2018. Okay. Coming out of it, we got punched in the nose a little bit with COVID. Yeah. But
that wasn't that long ago.
No, it really wasn't.
Huh. And that was, you were cutting it pretty damn close then. Like, company was nearly non-existent at that point.
Yes, very, very, very close. I basically sold every single thing I had, took every bit of debt I could. Thank goodness for the PPP.
Sure.
In a way, if it wasn't for COVID, we probably wouldn't be talking right here.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, quite honestly, I'm like, we needed every one of those dollars, and I had some peers in the construction industry. I was in Vistage, which is a business peer group, and I got some personal loans from some people who were in the business, who bet on me, and we lost all our bonding.
Really?
In one day.
Really?
Yeah, just we had I thought we had a pretty good meeting, and then I got a call the next day, like, oh, they're done.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, they don't care.
No. Well, don't say that, because they were the first one to give me a Christmas card that Christmas season.
Well, okay, all right.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
5 months later, that was the first Christmas card. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
But I remember reading Bob Chapman's book, Everybody Matters. He has a similar story. Like, the bankers were my best friend until they call you one day and say, hey, we're not going to do business with you anymore. It's no hard feelings, but and it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you've been a great customer for however many years, but that doesn't matter at all.
I know. Yeah. And it's I say our mantra is we're a people first company. And a lot of times it's, I'm talking about our people, right? Our employee owners, but it's people in general. It's like, because that night when I got the news, I called a good friend of mine, and he was in the surety business. And the only reason I wasn't using him is because when I bought Petticoat Contracting, that's how it became Petticoat-Schmitt. I bought a small company. I just stuck with the existing one, the broker at least. And I called him, and he's like, hey, I'll be in your office at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And we put together a plan where we cobbled together a small little surety line. And it took a few years to finally get back up to a real surety. But talk about relationships, to have people like that, between that and like the guy who loaned me a pile of money, and the people who did help out when I went through that valley. There are some people who did not.
You find out quick.
Yeah.
You find out really quick, which I just, it's not fun during, but it's very helpful after.
Yeah.
You know who to get closer to, who to stay away from. Yeah. And I also get it. Like, I understand. I try not to take, I've definitely taken things personally. I try not to, though, because that's not very productive, but it's like, it's also just, it's just helpful. Like, it's like the saying, like, when people tell you who they are, listen. It's like, oh, I thought this was something it wasn't.
Yeah.
Now I know, and now I can just go over here instead. But yeah, during it's not
Yeah.
Not nearly that much fun.
Yeah, and you're spot on too, because some of the people are like, "What? Where'd you go?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I didn't have enough energy to get wrapped around the axle about them. I just had to focus on the energy of getting it right. Every day walking into the punch and trying to figure out, oh my God, how am I going to get this, ship righted?
What got you into it in the first place?
So that's a good question. Because
2018 was pretty good in Florida, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was the wrong client. So I bought Petticoat Contracting in 2007. I'd been in the industry working for another company for 17 years, and I left and then bought this company. We started out real small, and things were going pretty good. I didn't have this, this big entrepreneurial wall I had to climb to get going. We were going along pretty good. And then in about 2016, we just had like 3 jobs, and there was a couple of other ones, but 3 primary jobs with just bad clients. And all 3 of these had, 2 of them had differing site conditions, a very, how should I say, there's not a spirit of partnership.
Sure.
Basically, it was like, differing site condition, instead of, stepping up to their duty to investigate, which is their duty.
Sounds
they
like
basically
your
said,
problem.
pound sand, we'll see you in court, file a claim.
Good luck.
Yeah. And we prevailed in principle. They're like, oh, you're right. So let's settle, right? So 30 cents on the dollar on basically 3 jobs. 2 of them were differing site conditions. One of them was a terrible design. It was a sidewalk design on a 28-inch thick mass concrete pour, which we said, that's not going to work. They said, no, pour it. And anyhow, so like I said, all of them we prevailed in principle, but settling 30 cents on the dollar, and kind of cut it. And so we were kind of, didn't make money a couple of years and then lost a pile of money, like an 18 at the very bottom. And so then it was like, okay, who are we working for? How are we doing our jobs? How are we vetting opportunities? And we had done plenty of that work before, but it was just, when it went bad, there was no spirit of partnership. And it just, so it was, if there was a book to read about a turnaround or how to run a business or I've read it. And every day just walking into the punch, lost our bonding, just sold anything and everything that had any value. I had
because when you lose your bonding, though, for people that don't understand, you can't do a lot.
Yeah,
you can't go build very much without that.
Yeah. Fortunately, we were doing some private work, like subdivisions, and then some people weren't requiring bonds, so we had some of that work, and we were able to cobble together like maybe a $2 million bond here and there. Those jobs I'm talking about were 14 million was one, 17 was one, the other one was 10, so they're pretty big jobs, all at about the same time. All of them, so it was like. Just the timing and the size, and they were bid great. Those were some of the best bid jobs on bid day. They looked like winners.
Sure,
but
and probably big jobs for you at the time.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, for us. So man, I just looked hard at like, okay, how we were doing our work. We had grown where we probably outgrew some of the people we had, and I brought some new people on. We moved some people around. Some people we had to. Exit the company and then just get really focused, and that's when we started doing EOS and then the great game of business. And I got completely transparent, because it's like, okay, I can either not share the financials and people can assume or guess how bad we're doing, or at least if I show the financials, it's only as bad as it really is, because I could just see people envisioning it way worse. And so I was showing a ton of negative numbers, like, but guys, here's the plan. This is what we're going to do. Here's the plan to get out of this. And, some of the most impactful things that I've ever heard were people who stayed loyal to me going, and during that time, like you just mentioned, other people were very profitable and paying out big bonuses to their teams, and we were not, because we didn't. But people stayed with us. They're like, "Oh, I believe in Ryan. I believe in Ryan." And that to me was like that. And fast forward, that's why we're going employee ownership. But anyhow, so navigating through that, became completely transparent, sharing the financials. I always shared it, but usually with the leadership team, but this everyone, the whole company.
I want to talk about that, but first, how was that time period for you personally?
That was the toughest part of my life. So, I mean, I laying in my bed, staring at the ceilings, not telling anyone, staring, not sleeping.
Yeah, been there.
And chest pains, and I'm like, oh, this is not good, because I was cutting all the costs I could in the company, which one of them was a life insurance policy on me. I'm like, I'm like, do I cut that? Because I'm not feeling really good. I think I might stroke out here. And I did drop we had flexible premium payments, so I dropped it to the very lowest I could. But those are the thoughts I was having. And then, like I said, I was in this Vistage group, which is a group of guys and gals that, we're all in business together. And they were the first people I told. I said, guys, I got a problem here. I said, I'm seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's a train. Because I saw what was happening with the cash, and these jobs were they were getting worse. And they're like, oh, well, let's have an emergency meeting. And they're like, well, have you told Jill, my wife? I'm like, I ain't told anyone. I mean, usually you're the first ones well, you need to go home and tell her. And I did. I said, honey, I'm facing, it's bad, and we could lose it all. And she said, well, it doesn't matter as long as we're still together. And I'm like, other than saying yes, when we got married, that was the best thing she's ever told me. I'm like, thank you. I said, because I got to get busy fixing this and this. But it was brutal. And then, just like not sleeping, trying to figure it out, trying to stay positive every day. And every day I'd put my feet on the floor, getting out of bed, and just say, walk into the punch, walk into the punch, walk into the punch. And you just think you'd get a little traction, and then something else would hit you. And it was brutal. It was brutal. And just like every day, I'd go straight to those job sites. And, not that, I think I'm going to profess that I can go fix it, because our guys in the field can do anything and everything they do way better than I ever could. But just being there, like, all right, guys, we got a tiger by the tail, and go through it. And but literally, like if anything I had that had any equity, I sold. I refinanced our entire fleet of equipment. We're big John Deere people, and so I just restructured all the debt and with John Deere credit, and thank goodness they did it. I had to pay a lot higher interest rate, but stretched out the payments. And if there's any, like I said, either I sold it or I mortgaged it or whatever, just then put all this, trying every bit of cash I could. So, it was tough. It was brutal.
Yeah. When you started to share everything financially, be transparent financially when it was bad. Like, you didn't wait to turn it around and then like, hey, look at these great numbers. They're going up.
Yeah.
So the numbers were not great that you were sharing.
Oh, they were horrific.
And you were sharing it with the whole company?
Yeah.
And so like what were those numbers? Like what were you sharing? Like the numbers, not numbers, but
yeah, well, I mean the net profit. Profit. Yeah. And we lost, like 2018 was worse. We lost millions.
Yeah.
Millions. And but I was like, all right, guys, but this is what we're doing. Here's the plan.
Sure.
We're not been this type of. We've got a plan. We're fighting these. We know we're right. We're going to prevail.
But it's still probably pretty scary.
Yeah.
To pull the curtain back, like, listen, we're in deep shit. I have to guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But thank goodness it all worked out. But I believe that, like I said, that The Great Game of Business is a phenomenal book, and it's a way to run a business, and it's one of the best when it comes to open book management. And Jack Stack had the guy who wrote it, and still is an active part of that business, and basically had the same thing. It's like, oh my God, I mean, this thing's a massive, and they were SRC's a manufacturing company. But same thing, it's like, man, if I don't tell them, they're going to think it's a lot worse. And
sure.
But collectively, as a group, we're going to be better off if we're versus me alone trying to fix this thing, and everyone else think we're just fine, right?
Yeah.
And operating that way.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive at face value. Like, well, no, I need to protect everybody, but it works with you, I think, in two ways. One, it allows everybody to row in the same direction, which is so valuable. Mm-hmm. And two, I think it gives you a lot more credibility because it's quite interesting. Like, most people in business will say they're very honest, but rarely is business honest, I've found. And it's not people intentionally lying. It's more so withholding of information.
Yeah.
And most people are doing it with good intentions, but it ends up going in a bad way because, like you said, then there's all these alternative narratives. Yeah. Like, if there's a gap in information, people fill in the gap.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point, it's not dishonesty, but it's a lack of transparency.
Yeah.
True transparency is super powerful. And
sure.
That's, I've spoken at last year at the summit and to what our transparency looks like. And once you can get there, and we're freakishly to one side, right? If there's spectrum of transparent or not transparent, I know, we're freakishly over to one side, but we had a freakishly, eventful journey to get there. But when you're there, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of power into it because I can sit back and my team now, they see it all. So to me, it's like I'm not carrying the load. It's evenly distributed. If we're not doing well, everyone sees it and why and where it is and the impact of, not meeting a schedule or a sub, not showing up in time. Because every Monday in our best meeting of the week, we project the next 2 months. Every PM we call them earned revenue shout outs. Every job, they'll adjust it every Monday for the next 2 months. And it might go up or down. And it's being adjusted real time. Our accounting department's doing it on Teams. And like, it's $450,000 for the month of May. Well, it was $500 last Monday. What went down? Well, paving sub got delayed. Enter it in, see how the gross profit gets adjusted, the whole gross profit of the company, G&A, net profit, and then our incentive because we share profits. And so everyone sees like, okay, well, man, if we would have just done a better job of getting that sub to show up, or maybe it's just wrong sub, maybe we need to be working with someone else. So it's, everyone sees it, and to be able to bear the burden across everyone and really understand, what's impacting earned revenue and gross profits and net profit. But you got to educate, you got to teach people what that means too, though.
Yeah, and we've shared a lot. One of our values is transparency wins, and it has been since I created our values. I love it. I think it's so freeing. Like you said, I mean, like we sold part of our business earlier this year, and when somebody hears sold business, they think money bags. The truck dropping off a bunch of bags of money, like the cartoon, with the big money sign, the money kind of coming up the top. And it's like, that wasn't the case. That wasn't how the deal was structured at all. As you know, when you sell things, it's you don't get a big check or with the giant checks. It's not really how it works. If we were a traditional business though, I would know that, but I wouldn't be able to talk about it. But it was like, I have a weekly update to the company, weekly update. And I was able to just here is exactly how the deal came together. And here's what it means for everybody. And here's why we structured it that way. And you can just share it. So it's like, now there's no alternative narrative.
Yeah.
Because here's the information. It's here it is. There's so, and if you have questions about it, let's discuss. But what you said too, you have to educate people. It's more work. Just giving people information is by no means the end of it, because the finances within a business are way different than personal finances. So it's there's stuff that's common in business that would be getting you foreclosed on in your personal life. Like there's all these things, and cash works different.
But where you can tie it, and it's hard because you got to figure out how you explain it, right?
Yeah.
I found when you can tie it to personal finance, it helps, right?
Yep.
So, and to your point, it's hard because you got to find out a way to communicate it where people understand it.
Yeah.
And if you can't just send your CFO up there and say, "Hey, talk to them about it," right?
Yeah.
Often,
here's our P&L.
Yeah, exactly. And and it's like, you gotta, and like, so that's our ESOP communication committee. We're constantly, putting information out there to hopefully improve and just what that education looks like. And I've done like Finance 101, Finance 201, but I'm like, and we were talking about like, we got to ramp it up. I mean, we need to do it more frequently, and it can't be just me. And we got to find different ways of explaining it. And so, so it's tack that on top of building stuff. And, but it's worth it. It is worth every bit of it, at least from my perspective, right?
Well, I've thought so much about you're one of the only companies that I know that does this. But to me, it's like, why wouldn't every construction company do this? Because it's like,
well, I think
I don't know how my project's performing.
Yeah, but the Valley of Darkness got us to do a lot of things. To me, it's changed me as a person because there's greatness on the other side of adversity. Mm-hmm. And I think because of that adversity, it forced me to go all the way to that side. And I'm like, oh my God, there it is. I mean, so a lot of people aren't facing that or have not gone through that. Like, everything's going along pretty good. So why would you throw yourself out there, and put all this extra effort on the communication and the training? Yeah. And I mean, the way we formatted up on Teams, it took us a long time to get it just right. And we're still working on it. To where it's really understandable, because there's a lot of numbers up there. It's that adversity that forced us there. So I could totally get it why people would not go all the way to the position we are,
But there's not, like, the amount of transparency in the industry is extremely low. Extremely. Like, when I worked in the industry, the only way you really the only way you could judge how a project was going financially was if the project manager was pissed off or in a good mood. And that sounds ridiculous, but it was kind of true. Like, the great jobs I was on, the project manager was in a good mood and morale's good. Everybody knows it, whether you know it or not. And the turds, it was miserable. Or how often you see leadership as well. Yeah. Like, if these executives are coming in, if they're leaving you alone, if they're nowhere to be found, cool. Yeah. But if these people that you've never seen are flying in and having these meetings, you're like, well, what's going on here? And I'm thinking through all the projects I was on. It's like, yeah, it's kind of true. Like, the really good ones that were just killing it, you'd never see anybody, because it's like, we've got it squared away. I would have liked to see people, but nope. But the losers, the absolute monsters, you'd have. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, because you really want to maximize your upside on the good ones as well as minimize the downsides on the bad ones. So to teach your people to really know the numbers and have an impact on the numbers by sharing the numbers. Mm-hmm. So you can really, they're going to run with the big ones, right? And not like, oh, no one's showing up, so I guess we're good, just kind of cruise along. Sure. But if everyone knows the numbers, because, it's like, oh, well, we can add a point or two on it here, man. We can, if we continue to do good, right, that's going to help the whole company, and, we share the profits of the company, as a formula, no cap, and it's like the rest goes into the ESOP. I'm like, everything that we do, good or bad, whether it's on we're paying better defense on a bad job or better offense on a good job, it's going to help the entire company.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So you have a profit sharing model as well. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, we call it the win the year, worth 30 cents of the dollar, and we track it. Everyone's won that meeting in the week on Monday. We can update it once we hit a certain profit a flat number, 30 cents of every dollar goes into it. And we could see it get adjusted.
Okay. So there's a base level of profit that you need to just keep running the company, investing, et cetera. Go over that. So every 30 cents then of the additional dollars goes into this profit share.
Yeah. It's called Win the Year, and then split, the whole company gets it. Same way with ESOP. Your
and just
pro rata, pro rata, and so it gets adjusted in real time every Monday when we do those forecasts. So literally, if we bump up a job to earn revenue because say we got way more work in place or whatever, boom, it goes right to the bottom line,
and the whole company can see that.
Whole company can see that number adjust.
Wow!
So people know the impact of good scheduling, getting subcontracts out on time, whatever we're doing to make that difference. So and then the other 70 cents, it's going into the ownership, right? So
sure,
it's going into the ESOP.
Yeah.
So everyone can see. And when I started doing that one too, I'll never forget. I had right after the meeting, like an AP clerk, she came up to me. She said, "So Ryan, when I process an invoice through AP, like once it hits and it drives the earned revenue, so my ability to process it faster and timely fashion affects that number." I'm like, "Yeah, you're exactly right." She's like, "Oh, I had no idea." So all of a sudden, she felt like she was a part of what the success or lack of success was in the company.
Sure.
All of a sudden she got it, she saw it.
And she always has been, but she hasn't had that information to tie it together.
Yeah, she thought she was just processing invoices. But now the impact of an invoice not getting processed, would affect that big time.
The whole cap thing is, I think, really important as well. Like Randy's talked about that. They would have a bonus program that would not have a cap on it, which I think is that's very motivating.
Yeah. I would say unlimited, uncapped. Really, I mean, as good as this company does, it's just
wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. The craziest thing, there's a lot of crazy things about this whole story, but which is why I was excited to actually talk to you about it, like formally, because I've got bits and pieces from all the other stuff you've been doing. But the craziest thing is, like, it's 2025. That was 2018. You're selling, you're reducing your life insurance or whatever it is to save money 7 years ago. That's not that long ago.
Yeah. I know.
That's really that's not that long ago.
No.
And like, to see the company now, no one, if you didn't say that, no one would have any. And if you didn't know, if I just came in from the outside, I would just make the assumption like, well, you just have been killing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But what you said too is interesting about that extreme thing happening, pushing you to one direction, because I've also seen it push people to the other direction. It can push you to the other side as well.
Yeah.
Like, I need to play this even closer to the chest, especially like 2010. I think had that, like, really, and I get it, like, emotionally scarred contractors. And I've seen a lot of people out of that, like, batten down the hatches even further. Like, we need to share less. We need to keep this even tighter here, which I find interesting. Like, it's pushed a lot of companies to do a lot of great things like you guys, but then it's also pushed others to go into their little turtle shell.
Yeah.
Like, let's go into our shell even more, which is, I think, it's just interesting how different it can be.
Yeah. And I think, the reason, like I said, I just read everything and just, it's funny, between the actual losses and then the opportunity cost, like I said, everyone else was making money then. So all the profit we did not make, and you add that to the actual losses, I'm like, oh my God, research how much it costs to send a kid to Harvard. I'm like, okay, that's equivalent to about 100 Harvard degrees. I got to be smarter than 100 Harvard grads to figure it. I'm like, all right, let's get busy doing it, right? Let's get busy doing it, So if there was a book on anything about it, or it just, and fortunately that pushed me to be the way I did, right? Instead of, being holding it closer to the chest. No, get open, get, transparent, show it, KPIs, measure everything,
Sure.
Put the information in the hands of all the people doing the work. The foremen have all the information, they know when they're on budget or not, and reward them for doing it, incent them to, beat the man hours we got on the job, just anything and everything we could do. And it, transparency, and how I acted as a leader too, empathetic, transparent, genuine. I show them a vision. I'm like, yeah, this is ugly, but this is where we're going, and here's how we're getting there. And just be relentless every day.
Sure.
And getting there. And even when maybe I wasn't so certain.
Yeah.
Exude that certainty.
Yeah.
Because I quickly realized people, man, they take a lot from just your body language and the looks on your face. And so it was like, I'm about to lose everything I've ever owned, but I still got to be positive and confident. There's the hill. We're charging the hill. We're going to get there, and here's the plan. And I think, people seeing that transparency too are like, wow, this is so unique. So that, I think, helped lend to the the vision that they were able to see it, because I did it so uniquely and so differently and so transparently, and with a people first commitment to them, like, hey, I'm going to make this right.
I think like what you said about even body language, I've been thinking about that for a while. I'm like this year I just have way more energy, and it's way more positive. And it's been a few things that have changed, but it's been a few years of a slog at just this, it's kind of like this defeated place a little bit. Like I didn't really realize my energy was it was being taken from me. So I didn't have a lot of it to give to other people. And they're just very intuitive. People can read if you're all in on something or not, or if you believe something or not. And you can fool some people, or you can use some big words, this and that. But over time, there's no fooling. I think people are quite smart. I think people are very intuitive, and you gotta believe what you're saying. And if you believe what you're saying, they buy into it because it's legitimate. But if you're not there, people can sniff it out, I feel like, pretty quick.
Yeah. And it's just like, as an entrepreneur, I mean, you got a lot going on inside, and I think it's easy for it to reflect out, and people notice that. They just notice it. And even to your point about the energy too, someone mentioned that to me just the other day, like, man, your energy's really up, Ryan. You're good,
Yeah.
And we've been out of this, the valley for a while now, but for whatever reason, it's like, well, I appreciate that. And you start thinking it, but it just reinforces just how you show up. And I think a lot of times as the entrepreneur, as the leader, you're on front stage, you're on stage, right?
Yeah.
And you need to,
whether you know it or not.
But if you think about it more often than not, when you go, you better be prepared to, think about it. And you don't want to, especially if it's not that big a deal, but you're just like, well, I got, just when I think that, that's the face I make. Well, don't, man, because your people are looking. Your people they want to see certainty. They want to see confidence. They want to see good energy. And so I think about that a lot when I go into a room, when I go into the office, when I go on a job site. That's one of the reasons, like, these feedback sessions on job sites are really good, because I'll do it 7 a.m. We're doing that company huddle, so I'll be in the huddle with those guys, and I'll have them all right there, and I get to talk to all of them. Because I realized if you go on a job site and you don't stop and talk to, and if you're spread out, you got multiple crews all over the job site.
Yeah.
I won't pull up on a job site unless I'm prepared to stop and talk to every single person.
Sure.
Because if I don't hit that one, they're not going to feel good.
Yeah.
They're not going to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Even if you're like, well, I got a meeting and I can't get all the way over. I mean, I've been here for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So I won't even go on the job site unless I'm prepared to talk to every single person. So having them all there at one time is awesome because I can get them all there. I know they're there.
Yeah.
And just having that feedback dialogue is really, really, really productive. But yeah, to your point, yeah, it's how you show up as a leader is a big part.
Yeah, I feel like I've talked to other people about this. Like just driving through the job site's almost worse than just not going.
Yeah.
Or talking to the, the super and then leaving. Like it, and I know sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah.
But if that's the state of like average state of affairs and that happens plenty. It's like you're almost better off just not going.
And I do that a lot. If I'm going, I'm driving by a job site, sometimes that like I don't plan to stop. Like it's just happened to drive by it on the where I'm going. Like I'm like, oh, I kind of go where like my truck can't be seen because I don't want people to think, I don't want to stop and talk to them.
Sure.
Because I do, I just can't. But
Yep,
if they won't understand that, I'm like, just the optics of things. The optics of things are huge. And I talked to my leadership team about that. I'm like, guys, you got to think about the optics, what we do and how we act and the things we say or don't do. The optics are huge.
Yeah, and that's something that I've had to really be careful of. Yeah, I remember we had a company meeting. And we had like a dinner before the company meeting, so we had everybody in for a few days. And that week I just got clobbered. It was like travel, I came in here and just one afternoon just slept for a few hours. It was like one of the only times in my life where my body was just like, we're done. We're not doing it anymore. Just lay down. I don't think I've ever been like that since. Yeah. But it was this day, and we made a big deal. I think it might have been like a Sunday. It might have been like, but we wanted everybody in on Sunday night because that was like the one night we had together as a team. And I was here with everybody, took a nap. I was here with everybody for a few hours. And then I left a little earlier than everybody else. And, the comment came in, wow, he made a big deal about everybody being here and then he leaves early. Yeah. And it's like, fuck. I want to defend myself. I'm like, well, you don't understand this and that, but it's like, none of that matters. Yeah. And that's the perception.
Yeah,
and matter. Perception is reality. And it's like, damn it. And even I've had to keep this in mind too, just from my word standpoint. When you're the guy, you'll say something offhand. You won't think twice about it. Like you could say something, it's not a big deal to you, and that individual can be thinking about what you just said for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
And you're not going to think twice about it ever again. But then you realize they've been thinking about it for the past 2 days, and you're like, oh no. And it wasn't even what you meant or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've gotten myself into those situations all the time too, especially messaging people. That's where like there's no context.
Yeah.
And people can just spiral, especially people new to the company that you don't have a relationship with. Mm-hmm. They're like, if you're the CEO of the company, they're putting their prior experiences with CEOs onto you. It doesn't matter how you are. They're informing you. They're informing the relationship they have with you based on the relationship they've had with everybody else. And oftentimes it's not positive.
Yeah.
And just all those things, especially as a young leader, I've had to understand because it's so easy to make it about you, but it's not at all about you.
Yeah. Yeah, I often try to sort of like, it's a much safer place if you lead with a question, right? And I just think, because sometimes as you say something, that people just take it as gospel, or maybe it just doesn't come, so it's like, it's just best to lead with a question, or just, do I have to say anything at this point?
Sure.
Right? Sit back and just observe my team and say, okay, is this team going to figure it out and operate in a fashion that makes me feel good? I have a leadership team because they're here to do it, right? Lead the company. So am I good at that all the time? No.
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody is. I think we're all figuring it out.
But I think when I do that, I'm better.
Sure.
When I do that, I'm better.
How's recruiting for you guys?
This employee ownership is helping, I think. I mean, you're not seeing a wave. It's not a huge difference. But I think when people talk about coming to work for the company and getting internal referrals, I think more people are excited. So I think that helps. We've got internal recruiters that we're really focusing on recruiting. I was talking about look at the funnel really wide at the top and tight at the bottom. And now we're starting to use AI to screen some of these at the top, and we're pushing that more and more.
Well, people are using AI to apply for jobs now too.
Yeah. And so we got a bunch of chat bots talking to each other. Yeah. So who knows what's coming out of the bottom of the funnel, right? It could be, hey, Chat GPT just showed up for work, right? Yeah. So who knows? But we investing in a simulator to test skills, and we're putting people on job sites and getting on equipment, for the longest time. I hope my insurance guy isn't listening to this, but I'm like, we can't do that but we just make sure that it's not in an active area, and we'll actually, you could see when a guy climbs up and down on a machine and the first thing he does or does not do,
kind of fumbles around a little bit.
That's been helpful, and so it's still a chore. I mean, I'm not going to say we've got it figured out or we can name our people in the amount we want, but we've got a fair amount of open seats that we're trying to fill. But I'm telling you, man, really investing in leadership and that part of the business is huge. We've done that recently, and it's I think I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So you'll before leadership, you'll use the simulator before people work for you to just see if they know if they're an excavator operator.
Yeah,
you
just to test their skills.
Run the excavator.
Yeah. We could do a little better job on that. We don't do it all the time. That's the goal, though. Is like that simulator not only to help train but also test people just some basic skills. That that's quite good. What they say they are.
Yeah, that's quite good.
Yeah.
With the leadership, how are you approaching that?
For like foreman, superintendent, that type.
How are you?
We use one a culture index, which is like a personality profile test, similar to the predictive index, just to see what type of profile they are. And it's amazing how uncannily predictive that stuff is.
Yeah.
Just really pushing background checks and reference checks and getting as much as we can on people and get a good feel for them that they're the right fit culturally and technically. But man, if they're going to be a leader in the company, we want that culture fit.
Sure.
Big time. So we've pushed and have gotten pretty good at promoting from within too. We hired a full-time training and development manager almost 2 years ago now, and she's got staff under her. We pulled out one of her better foremen and put him in a full-time training role. We just really doubled down. We got a training yard we call the Forge, where we built a classroom with skills, all types of hands-on skills trainings permanently set up. We're, obviously with you guys, with all the Build Wit videos, we really pump that. We reward people a lot. We've got big incentive plans. They can earn PTO or extra pay. Or,
PTO? Nice.
Most people take the money, but
sure.
And then also gamify it a little bit too. So, there's a lot of people who participate. So, we've got like, booklets on every position in the company listing all the skill sets. So if they demonstrate they've mastered it with their superintendent or foreman signing off, they'll be eligible for promotion. So a lot of these, we're promoting through, take them from, hands-on skilled position and maybe take them to a crew lead and into a foreman. And so we've gotten a little bit of traction there from doing some more internal promotions. It's been a slog, though. It's been some years and investing in those programs too. So, not to say that we haven't stopped, hiring from outside, but man, if we could do it, promote people from the inside, it just goes way more smoother.
The booklets. So you've defined like a superintendent role, for example. This is what a superintendent does, and here's the skill set necessary to be a superintendent here?
Yeah, we've got it for pipe crew, survey crew, grade crew, a mechanical crew. Yeah.
Really?
And down. And then for like the PM and superintendent, it's like a spiral bound book. It's substantial.
Okay.
And those other positions, I mean, literally, if you're a tailman on a pipe crew, you go to the pipe crew booklet, and it's like, for the tailman, here's all these areas of competency that you need to demonstrate, to be eligible to move up to, say, like a pipe layer or another position on the crew.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, it is, because it's like it puts that in their hands, because we found that we have so many things, but we've got to get the people, if they want to raise, you're like, okay, well, show me where you've done the effort to, show me your build with videos, show me what you've completed in this book.
Sure.
Well, if they haven't, that's a different discussion. If they have, you're like, awesome.
Yeah.
And like these, we put on the BuildWit platform, we do our own, we call them Micro Mondays. So before we even discovered the BuildWit videos, we were doing our own little mini videos. We called them Micro Mondays. And we would do like a series on, shoot and grade, or cutting and beveling pipe, or intro to Excel, or Jocko's, leadership things.
Sure.
And we would gamify, give out awards, and again, that's when a lot of the PTO and the money at the end of the year. If you did so many over the course of the year, and we'd have a leaderboard, and I always said, hey, I look at that leaderboard, and if I see you at the top of that leaderboard, and your give a crap meter is pegged over here, it's like, what are we doing to move this guy up?
Yeah.
And we've had guys come in at like labor positions who are now like mid-level, upper mid-level managers and leaders. Largely you saw what they were doing year after year. I mean, if they're that committed, heck yeah, we're going to move them up. So that's been a helpful tool. And then obviously once we were discovered you guys years ago, and coupled that together, and so doing a lot of that.
Yeah, you guys have been on for a while. No, this year, like I was telling you, it's going to get real fun. We're getting some things dialed in here, and it's a lot better. But I talk to younger guys about that all the time. Like, I just try to give them the business owner perspective. Like, listen, you're supposed to do your job. So that's what you're here to do. It's what are you doing beyond that at work and outside of work that I'm going to be considering before, like, the people that are hungriest here doing more than they should be doing. And then they're just hungry from a development standpoint in general. They're just making themselves a better person. Like, those are the people I'm going to be considering first, without it 10 out of 10 times when it comes to, hey, we've got an open position. We need somebody else to lead here. Let's give them a shot. They're hungry. They're proving themselves. It's never, they have potential. Maybe they'll like, they're doing their job well. Maybe they'll do more. Like, that's not how it works anywhere, I feel like. There's somebody I know very well within my world. They want to be a leader, and they think them doing their job really well qualifies them to be a leader. And I have to have the conversation with them at some point. Like, listen, that's not actually how it works. Like, and they don't work here. They're on the outside, but it's like, what are you doing to be in that leadership position? Yeah. All right, you're doing your job well. Cool. Yeah, that's like one box to check. What else?
Yeah.
What else?
I love this saying, like, there's two types of people that don't get ahead in the world: people who don't do what they're supposed to do, and people who only do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And I speak to every new hire orientation every week, and the first 2 hours, and I get to know their family, and we talk all this stuff, and then I talked about the company and the culture. And I always, when I show them these books and I show them what we're doing in training and development, I'm like, guys, I'm gonna let you know a secret here. I love to pay people a ton of money. I love to pay people a ton of money. But it's not up to me. It's up to the individual who provides the value in the marketplace. Yeah. So if you develop your skills and provide a ton of value, and I don't pay you well, someone else is going to, and I'll be an idiot. But I don't want to be an idiot. I want to be the guy who pays you well. And by the way, here's all the stuff that we're going to do to help you. I mean, all the stuff. And I started talking about the BuildWit videos, and our Forge training yard, and the simulator, and the booklets, and our full-time training and development manager that's sitting right next to you. And it's like,
but it's like, you gotta meet me in the middle.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna go to the middle, but you
I
gotta
need some effort.
Yeah, you gotta meet me there. If you don't meet me there, I can only do so much. Yeah. it's pretty exciting to see what you all are doing. It's super exciting. There's really not many other contractors doing that as much as you guys are, really. Like, there's some great contractors out there doing some great stuff, but you're definitely not the norm. Not even close.
And it's when I started telling my story at some of the workshops, through the dirt world, and and I guess, having lived the whole Valley of Darkness, well, one, telling that story, people are like blown away. I've gotten so many responses, and, I have told my story on multiple platforms, other podcasts, and obviously through the dirt world, which has been awesome. And I'm starting to realize, like, oh, wow, to me, it was just survival and like, all right, we got to find a better way to do it. Literally, like, this is a result of me trying to be better than 100 Harvard graduates. Not to say we got it all right, and we're constantly tweaking it. We're constantly looking at ourselves and evaluating it and trying to get better. It's like I look back, I'm like, this is pretty cool, and and now it's kind of got me. And I say I'm Ryan 2.0.
Yeah.
Especially selling to the employees, and this is almost like that missing piece of the full circle that, like, oh my God, where do we go? This is awesome. So we've got this great process and culture and, transparency, and now we've coupled it with employee ownership, and man, so where we're going now, it's like I said, it's got me even more excited, and it's a real exciting place to be.
Well, it seems like it's only getting more fun.
It is. Oh, yeah. I'm loving it. And I'm really enjoying this, getting out and speaking and talking about it and saying, hey, this is, you don't have to go through what I did to get here, but you could still get here, right? And in fact, I would suggest not taking the route I took it. Yeah. And how can I help the industry by doing that? Talking, telling my story, and, then just like, hey, it's a great place to be.
Sure. Right on. Yeah. Well, if people want to come to work for the company, they can just go to the website?
They can, yeah.
Sweet. And then they can, are you on LinkedIn? Yeah. You show on there.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. I listen to you. Yeah.
How about it?
We've got like a internal, it's called Beekeeper, our internal kind of social media. It's really cool.
Oh, cool.
And it's, because I've always sent out emails and videos, but we got like 75 to 78% engagement throughout the company.
Wow.
And it's like the email's like 10%. And so we're
the
doing
whole company.
The whole company, every single person, because we got people posting what they'll do on the weekends,
but then
fun. Cool stuff on the jobs, and like contests, and like when I do those feedback sessions, I'm posting it, and they're like, Ryan, you're like the number one guy. I'm like, yeah, I'm the chief explanation officer, chief excitement officer, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But that, and then LinkedIn, I try and stay pretty active, talking about especially people first, and and just kind of pushing that.
Sweet.
So,
well, I
appreciate your tips, and
I'm glad it's worked. Yeah. It's been. I had my friend Glenn in here a few days ago. He's like, I've just been doing what you said to do. I was like, that's fantastic. Great. That's great news. Yeah. LinkedIn's unbelievable. Yeah. It's such a fun tool. It's fun. Like everybody's like, it's gonna be this big chore. I'm like, no, it's not. You just talk about your people.
Yeah.
You just talk about what the heck's going on in your company. Like it should be fun. Like it shouldn't be a chore.
Yeah. It means just got to get in. It's like, if you're excited about it, all right, then that's something you should share.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate you stopping by.
Man, it's great to be up here.
Yeah, and hopefully we get down your neck of the woods one of these days.
Yeah, come on, Jacksonville, great place to be.
Right on.
Yeah, we'll show you around.